What's up, tankers? It's Taugrim. Today on our road to Unicum, we review the Chaffee. This is the Tier 5 American light tank. The Top Gun has excellent gun handling with a superb aim time of 1.9 seconds, which you can bring down by mounting vertical stabilizers. Most tanks at this tier can only mount a gun laying drive, so this is a big bonus, and the accuracy is very solid at 0.36. The only downside to the gun is the lackluster 96 silver penetration, which is fairly average for a light tank of its tier, but can provide some problems for you if you're trying to pen Tier 8 or Tier 7 or Tier 6 even tanks frontally. The view range is awesome at 390 meters, and coupled with the high camouflage and good mobility makes this a very good scout. The one thing to be very concerned about is the thin hull armor. It only has 25 millimeters at its maximum, which means you can be triple overmatched by any gun of 75 millimeters in caliber or higher, and triple overmatch always means a guaranteed penetration. So let's take a look at the Chaffee in a Tier 8 Malinovka encounter battle. One thing to be aware of is that the top tier tanks in this battle are capable of one-shotting me, and the spawns are very close, so I'm not going to run up to A0, which is the top of hill, because their tanks will very quickly get up toward the top of the hill and spot me, even though I've got superior vision control mechanics. And this tank's definitely not built to brawl. It doesn't have the alpha penetration or armor to allow it to safely brawl with higher tier tanks, especially in a match like this. If I'm on a lower tier battle, like a Tier 6 battle, I can consider doing some brawling, but really, my focus should be on spotting enemy tanks and keeping them lit so that I can rack up assisted damage and help my team win the battle that way. That LTTP didn't even spot me. We were only about a square away, and granted, he was only visible for a brief moment, but it kind of highlights how good the camouflage for the Chaffee is. We have a lot of tanks pushing up the hill, but you can see that our southwestern flank is completely undefended, and I don't go down there for a couple reasons. One, given that this is an encounter mode, there is going to be a good concentration of enemy tanks northeast. Beyond that, southwest, the only tanks that can provide supporting fire would be the KV-13 as well as our two arties. And if enemy tanks make a push into the southwest corner of the map and they realize that I'm alone, they'll be able to just push my face in and wreck me, and there'll be very little opportunity for our arties to actually fire on them. Arties are most effective firing on targets that are not moving in the open, either because they're tracked or they're taking fire and they don't want to push forward, or when an artie knows that a player is going to come out from behind a hard cover such as a rock or a building corner. But in a situation like, if I were sitting down the southwest corner of the map solo, enemy tanks are going to be able to push up very aggressively against me since I'm not much of a threat in terms of my gun in a battle like this. So I'm continuing to keep targets lit, and we've already picked off two of their TDs, which is a really good start for us. And the IS-3, you'll notice I took a shot on it earlier, not because I'm expecting to penetrate. I was hoping to maybe shoot him through his rear drive wheel and keep him tracked so that we could get some friendly fire on it. I respot this tank destroyer, our artie hits him, and then I get the finishing kill there. The great thing about being where I am is that I do have good hard cover and soft cover to work with unless we get flanked. So the Cromwell has pushed up directly south of me, and now our arties are in trouble, so I've got to scramble and see if I can cut that Cromwell off. And there was a second shell that came in pretty soon after the first one, so this Cromwell may be with his platoon buddy. But either way, what I need to do is cut south and get between those tanks and our artie, and you can see that our 207 has already taken a damaging shot from the Cromwell, so they know where our arties are and they're pushing up on them. And I make a slight miscalculation here. I'm thinking that the Cromwell may be still around the K7 area, that building, and just kind of like hanging out and trying to spot the arties, but as it turns out, the Cromwell actually pushes very aggressively down the K lane all the way to K0. And I take a snapshot on him, but it misses. I should have been leading that shot out a little more. And then I spot the other Cromwell. So their platoon is here, and this is a bit of a dicey situation since both Cromwells are at full health. But the important thing is right there, our artie shotguns the lead Cromwell. And that's partly because I helped spot the Cromwells and gave are already, enough time to aim in and pick off that Cromwell. I've missed a couple shots as this Cromwell is advancing. The Cromwell, by the way, has really poor accuracy on the move. It's like the very definition of poor gun bloom. So I have a snapshot advantage, and so far the Cromwell has been more focused on taking out their arties than I've been able to put in a fair amount of damage on him. And for whatever reason, our tank destroyers that were up by the 1 spawn have both been killed. But one thing which is really cool is that our IS-3 is pushing down the hill to assist me, and that shows really good minimap awareness and situational awareness, because our tanks that are up at the top of the hill have been completely stalled out by their tank destroyers that are hanging out by the church, which provides good hard cover, and their T-28 Prot in this battle racks up over 4,000 damage, so that player does really well, leveraging the very strong armor that he has, and so our tanks on hill are kind of stuck, not able to push forward, but thankfully, because this IS-3 has pushed down, we're able to beat the tanks on this flank. The LTTP has trollishly thick frontal hull armor. I didn't realize how thick it was until after I went and looked at the armor profile after this video, but to penetrate the lower front glacis, I'd need a penetration value on my gun of 120 or more, which, even with the very best roll with the silver ammo is likely not to penetrate, and even if I switch over to HE, that's also likely to do no damage or very little damage. Still, the LTTB is at low health, and if I hit him with high explosive and it manages to penetrate, I might deal some module damage or kill a crew member, and that's always helpful. IS-3 is very aggressively pushing up. This is a smart move on his part, and as he's driving across the water gap, he takes a snapshot but just keeps moving, and that's really the smart thing for him to do, because the RHM is spotted a tank from hill, and my tank get damaging shots on him, so he's dropped down to around 200 hit points. And the IS-3 is smart in pushing aggressively across the water this late, and he's trying to reach that slope because that'll provide him with some meaningful hard cover to protect him from the TDs. The only tank that they've got left that has good vision control is the Cromwell, so if we can take out that medium, then they'll be pretty blind, because we still have me as a light tank and their T-20 as a medium tank. And I spot the Cromwell on the west side of the lake. Now, one thing I realized in watching the replay was that as the IS-3 was crossing the channel, he was hit by the Cromwell once, and that should have told me, or I should have picked up on the fact that the Cromwell was likely on this side of the lake. But either way, I do finally spot him. And despite the fact that, in a straight-up 1v1 situation, point blank, the Cromwell would absolutely wreck the Chaffee, I have a couple advantages here. One, my gun is far better at snapshotting, and because he's coming across the water, he can't stop driving or he might drown, and as he's moving, his gun handling is very poor. That's a bad shot. I hit the side of his tank and it bounced off, and then here's an anxious moment. He hits me and jams my turret, so I quickly repair and then put the finishing shell through the front of his turret face. There are some tanks like the Cromwell which really don't have any kind of meaningful mantlet protection, so if their turret is soft, you can just shoot him right in the face. The T-28 Prot has been playing really well, but unfortunately his supporting tanks are all dead, and he's fully flanked by the IS-3 now. We take him out, and the game's pretty much over. I have one more replay to show you, but let's quickly look at the battle results. I set a personal best of 2,688 for experience on this tank, or a base experience of 1,792. This is the best game that I've ever played on this account, over 14,000 battles, and I got that much XP on the strength of dealing almost 2,500 damage, 2,200 in spotting, 8 spots, 4 kills, and even a little defense to boot. So in this live Oaks match, you can see that most of our tanks are on the western side of the map heading towards city. There's a major lemming train going that way, and we're very thin to the east. There's a Firefly, but he's so far back, I don't really trust that he's going to be able to meaningfully contribute in hitting these tanks here, and also I don't see any damage from his gun. Our KV-1S was with me, but he pushed over the top of the tracks and stopped. It's really foolish. He should have at least run along the waterline to the ridges in front of me. That would have provided him some hard cover, and then of course I missed that Cromwell there by bouncing on his gun. But either way, I'm going to be nothing more than a speed bump if I continue to hang out here. And because their tanks are pushing up so quickly, even though I'm spotting them for arty, it's going to be hard for our arties to hit them, and the arties have a pretty long reload. So the tanks that we have over by D4 and D5 aren't going to be able to fire on these enemy tanks that are pushing on the south side of the rails. And I'm heading toward this little gully here where our AMX 13AM is, and that's where the Hellcat's heading, because that ditch provides good hard cover as well as some bushes that provide soft cover. There was a Churchill 7 who was clicking and I think trying to tell me to spot the eastern side of the map, the east side of the rails, but it really doesn't make any sense. Even if I light targets there, the only ones that could hit them are arty. So ideally what I'd want to do is, have friendly tanks with me where we can find a place where we can get their tanks to stop and settle down, and that will provide much better opportunities for our arty. I probably should have reacted a little faster to this situation. Our Firefly is in a 1 versus 1 against the Cromwell, but the Cromwell's getting the better end of these exchanges, and had I pushed up a little earlier, there's a chance that I could have killed the Cromwell before this Firefly gets finished off. That being said, the Firefly had done basically no damage until this Cromwell was in point blank range, and you don't want to, if there's a player that you're not sure that they're going to do well, it's not worth throwing away your HP to support them. This Cromwell is pushing up pretty aggressively. I think this is the same one that I bounced a shot off his gun barrel earlier, and while he does land one damaging shot, I land multiples, and then the Hellcat polishes them off. So their team knows that the Hellcat is there, and this makes the Cromwell B right in front of me very skittish. He's one-shottable by anything. There is also the ELC AMX as well as a VK that's been spotted here, and in a moment a fourth tank, a full HP Hellcat, shows up. And what I'm trying to do is use the building as hard cover, keep them proximity spotted. Nobody likes being proximity spotted because then they know that our remaining arty knows where they are, and I'm not in any rush to engage them because I need to conserve my hit points. As long as I stay up around 300 hit points, it's unlikely that even their ELC can one-shot me. So I'm just going to sit here and be patient. And at the time when I came back toward these buildings, the score was 4-4, so it was tied, but our tanks are winning the northern half of the map, so there's no rush for me to do anything. I just got to stay alive, keep these guys spotted, and you can see their low hit point Cromwell B actually, bails out because he realizes if he comes around the corner, I'm going to shoot him, or the Hellcat's going to shoot him, or arty's going to get him. And here's a good example. This ELC just gets wrecked by our arty, but that's because our arty has plenty of time to fully aim in, and he's probably just aiming on either side of the building in case they come around. I take a poor shot there on the Hellcat. I was trying to track him in the front drive wheel right when he came around, but he takes a poor shot in return, and that allows me to easily flank him and burn him down. So there's situations like this where people will tell you to spot as a light tank, but you really should only spot if it makes sense and if you have friendly supporting guns, not just arty, that are able to support you, and I essentially stalled out their side in the south push for the win. In the next video, we're going to take a look at the Lorraine 40T. This is the infamous Tier 9 medium that leads to the highly popular Bat Chat, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.